Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news. The Pope has died. Not long after an appearance during the holiest weekend of the Christian calendar, the Vatican has confirmed Pope Francis passed away at 7:35 a.m. local time just 3 hours ago. The Catholic Church's first Pope from Latin America was 88.
He was known as the People's Pope, a man who cared deeply for the sick, the poor and the persecuted. But he said it could be a lonely job. This was him during COVID. We were caught off guard, he said, by an unexpected turbulence. He could well have been talking about the impact he had on the Catholic Church worldwide when he became pontiff. 2013, the white smoke rises for the newly elected Francis, a pope who brought the promise of reform in his singular attempt to drag the church into the 21st century. Thank you so much, he said. Please pray for me. Pope number 266, elected to the role when the previous pontiff, Benedict, suddenly resigned. The first time that had happened in 600 years. Francis was 76 years old, from Argentina, considered an outside chance, surprising frontrunners like Australia's George Pell.
He'll be a formidable pope.
The first Jesuit pope, the first from Latin America, from the Southern Hemisphere, a surprise pick and package.
Francis was outside the box in that way, and that was destabilizing for a lot of people. He was a disruptor, very much so.
From his first appearance, he rejected the flashy papal furs and outfits, stayed in plain white, refused the solid gold ring, took a silver one with gold plating. He took the bus home that night, not the papal car. In fact, he refused expensive cars altogether. This was his preference, a Ford Focus.
Fa male.
A priest with the latest models, he said, it's just not right.
Con la macchina ultimo modello, ma no si può.
He named himself after St. Francis of Assisi, patron saint of the poor, and he led by example. No papal palace, took a flat nearby, loved public transport, cooked his own meals, got coffee from a coin-operated machine in Italy. He was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, 1936. The son of Italian migrants, was a bouncer and cleaner, a chemistry student whose biggest reaction was to religion. He pivoted to the priesthood. I had my own plans, he said, but one day I went into the church and God was waiting for me. Ordained age 32, and after a 32-year career, he was made a cardinal. He was long criticised at home for not standing up to Argentina's former military dictatorship. But as Pope, he made a habit of holding governments to account. Here, preaching to the UN on poverty, describing capitalism as the cult of money. And here, denouncing Russia over Ukraine. In the name of God, he said, stop this massacre. He apologised too for Christian support of colonisation. He was an activist pope. He championed the cause of refugees, was a climate change warrior. He brought more women into church roles, tried to clear out corruption from the Vatican Bank.
Pope Francis had steel down the middle of him, and nobody should ever doubt his inner strength.
And one of his biggest campaigns against clerical sex abuse, acknowledging church responsibility, apologising.
Faccio un sentito appello.
Though not going much further.
It's never possible to say he did everything, every single thing that he could have done. But my judgment would be he was relentless, he was persistent.
He left the door open on LGBT issues, raising hopes with his famous comment, "Who am I to judge?" He allowed gay men to become priests in Italy and priests to bless same-sex couples. But on abortion, contraception, divorce, women priests, progressives thought he should have done much more. Conservatives thought he did too much.
If you're not offended by Pope Francis, you're not listening. He was an equal opportunity offender.
He travelled the world, visited dozens of countries and most of their leaders, some controversial, from President Putin to Iran's Ayatollah, comfortable with the famous, but not as much as he was with the faithful. He adored his followers and they adored him.
The reaction of the faithful as they see Pope Francis for the first time ranges anywhere between screaming and speechless.
It was not about the cameras. It was about being there for people.
His 2015 tour to the Philippines drew the biggest crowds in history, over 6 million at Mass. Italians called him the cold call Pope. He loved to drop in on randoms, terrifying his security. The crowds loved his personal touch, but when their touch got too much, he'd let them know. He was Man of the Year for Time magazine, made the cover of Rolling Stone too, had 18 million followers on X, but in recent times, increasing posts about his battles with health. He's long suffered respiratory problems, had pleurisy in his youth and a part of his lung removed. In July last year, a reporter asks, "How are you?"
No, per il momento no, davvero.
"Still alive," he responds. But it was difficult. 2020, chronic sciatica nerve pain. 2021, diverticulosis, abdominal surgery. 2022, chronic knee pain, first used a wheelchair. 23, bronchitis, more abdominal surgery. 2024, a fall, bruising, more flu. Then February 14, admitted for double pneumonia, a complex polymicrobial infection. But even in death, his influence will be enormous. 80% of the cardinals who will vote for a new pope were chosen by Francis. And for the first time in history, a majority of them are from outside Europe, Africa, Asia, and left-field candidates, like Australia's new cardinal, Ukrainian bishop Mykola Bichok, replacing George Pell. He's the youngest in the world, just 44.
This conclave will be a referendum on the last 12 years, the leadership of Pope Francis.
Stacking the numbers, he was an activist even in death, perhaps to make sure his legacy lives. Chris Reason, 7 News.
The Pope had been ill for several weeks. A short time ago, the Vatican released a statement saying the pontiff's whole life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church. The Vatican says Francis taught us to live the values of the gospel with fidelity, courage and universal love, especially in favour of the poorest and most marginalised. The statement ends by saying, with immense gratitude, the Church commends the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite, merciful love of God. Well, lifesavers say they've never battled anything like it, with a rescue every 30 minutes in what's been our deadliest Easter on the water in living memory.